Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a sledgehammer to one of our society's most cherished and, honestly, most stubborn beliefs, the cultural worship of natural talent. You know exactly what I mean. For decades, we've totally idolized the effortless genius, the child prodigy, the natural-born athlete. But what if I told you that praising someone's natural ability is actually one of the absolute most damaging things you can do to their potential? It's true. Today, we're going to explore the fascinating science of why effort consistently beats natural intelligence, and how shifting your perspective away from this whole effortless genius idea can literally rewire your brain for success. To really understand this, we've got to ask a pretty provocative question. Why do the naturals so often crash and burn when they finally hit a roadblock? Take the story of Billy Beane, for example. Back in high school, Beane was your textbook natural. He was the highest scorer in basketball, the star quarterback, a top baseball hitter, and he did the whole shebang with very little effort. People honestly thought he was the next Babe Ruth. But when he reached the major leagues, he completely crumbled. Why? Well, because as a natural, he had never actually learned how to deal with mistakes. He firmly believed naturals shouldn't need practice. So every single time he struck out, he fell apart. He just didn't know how to learn from failure. We all kind of love the myth of the lone, effortless genius, right? But let's look at Thomas Edison. We always picture him having this sudden, magical light bulb moment, literally. But the truth is, he had 30 assistants, including highly trained scientists, working around the clock in a massive, state-of-the-art lab just to make that invention a reality. It's the same in sports. Babe Ruth relied on intense, constant experimentation during his early days as a pitcher, and Muhammad Ali didn't even have the physical measurements of a quote-unquote natural boxer. What they all actually had was a relentless, almost obsessive dedication to effort. Section 1. The myth of the natural. So this brings us to a massive paradigm shift. Our society has a really deep-seated bias. We value effortless accomplishments far, far more than hard-won achievements. But this creates a seriously dangerous trap called the nobody-somebody syndrome. See, when you believe your success is based entirely on your innate gifts, success becomes totally binary. If you win, you're a somebody. But if you experience a single defeat, you don't just fail at a task, you become a nobody. A single setback suddenly feels like a permanent, intensely personal failure. Section 2. Fixed versus growth mindset. Okay, let's dive right into this by looking at the pioneering work of Stanford psychologist Dr. Carol Dweck. She completely revolutionized how we understand this dynamic. Dweck identified two core frameworks, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. In a fixed mindset, you believe intelligence and talent are just static, carved in stone, right? You avoid challenges because, well, struggling means you just aren't smart. In contrast, a growth mindset is the belief that your basic abilities can absolutely be developed. You embrace challenges, but the sharpest contrast is how they view effort. A fixed mindset individual sees putting in effort as a massive red flag, proof that they lack natural ability. A growth mindset individual, they see effort as the exact mechanism that actually makes you smart. And the real-world impact of these theories is honestly profound. When researchers looked at college students who were experiencing setbacks, the reactions were night and day. Students with a fixed mindset tended to get depressed, constantly ruminating over their failures and feelings of incompetence. They essentially paralyzed themselves. But students with a growth mindset, even if they felt bummed out about a bad grade, they took immediate action. They studied harder, they changed their strategies, they went to office hours, they actively worked to resolve the problem. To see just how early this wiring starts, consider a fascinating yet completely jarring statistic from a study by researchers Claudia Mueller and Carol Dweck. They gave 9 to 12-year-olds a problem-solving game and then praised them in different ways. Some were praised for their natural intelligence, others for their effort. The behavioral consequences were severe, culminating in this shocking number, 38%. So what's really interesting is exactly what that 38% represents. When kids were praised for being smart, they later actively chose easier tasks just to protect their image. They gave up way quicker when things got hard, and, get this, a staggering 38% of them actually lied about their final scores to strangers. They felt they had to protect their smart ego at literally all costs. Meanwhile, of the kids who were praised for their effort, only 13% lied. The effort-praised kids actually enjoyed the harder tasks and legitimately wanted to learn from them. Section 3. The neuroscience of effort. So, we can clearly see the psychological impact. But is this just, a feel-good motivational theory? Not at all. Let's shift gears from psychology to biology for a second. Enter the incredible science of neuroplasticity. Your brain is not a static computer. It's a highly adaptable organ, much like a muscle. When you push past your comfort zone, your brain literally wires and reorganizes itself. Now, here is a wild fact for you. Up until about age 25, your brain rewires somewhat passively just by being exposed to different environments. But after age 25, you have to actively pursue information and practically embrace struggle to force those neural pathways to change. Let's move to and see how this builds biologically, in 4 distinct steps. First, you encounter a challenge that totally stumps you. Second, you don't quit. You exert sustained effort and try out some new learning strategies. Third, as you struggle, those tiny neural connections in your brain actually start to multiply and become stronger. And fourth, your brain's literal capacity expands. The struggle isn't a sign of weakness, guys. The struggle is the actual physical sensation of your brain growing. Section 4, beware the false mindset. Now, there is a critical scientific nuance we absolutely have to cover here. As this research became incredibly popular, it also became heavily misunderstood. We need to beware of the false growth mindset. Even Carol Dweck herself has expressed deep concern that her complex research was boiled down to a basic bumper sticker, just praise effort. That led to the false growth mindset. Imagine a student completely failing a math test, and the teacher just says, well, at least you tried. Actually, scratch that, it's worse. That empty praise genuinely exacerbates the problem. Growth mindset is not just about trying hard, it's about tying that effort to effective strategies and actionable feedback. Effort without strategy is literally just spinning your wheels. To truly learn, we've got to realize that not all mistakes are created equal. Educator Eduardo Brasino breaks this down so brilliantly. A stretch mistake happens when you're actively expanding your abilities. This is great, you just reflect and adjust. An aha moment mistake reveals a gap in your knowledge. A sloppy mistake is just a loss of focus, meaning you need better habits, not necessarily more learning. And high-stakes mistakes happen when you're testing your limits in a big performance. You really must identify the specific type of mistake to extract the right lesson from it. And to be fair, we also have to look at the broader scientific debate here. A recent meta-analysis, including a fascinating study by Lee and Bates, asked a really tough question. When students improve, is it because we taught them their brains are malleable, or is it simply because we're actively encouraging them to try harder and use better strategies? In some controlled studies, students who were just encouraged to put forth effort performed exactly as well as those given the full mindset intervention. It's a great reminder that direct encouragement and teaching concrete learning strategies are absolutely vital ingredients to the whole process. Section 5, unlocking your true potential. So the crucial point is, how do we bring this science down to earth and actually use it? It comes down to how we deliver feedback. If you manage a team or if you're a parent, you have to stop praising the person's inherent traits. If you say, wow, you are so smart, you're a natural, you're unknowingly locking them into a fixed mindset where they have to constantly defend that title. Instead, praise the process. Say something like, I really admire the strategy, focus, and perseverance you use to figure this out. That validates their hard work and gives them a reproducible roadmap for their next big challenge. In the corporate world, massive organizations like Microsoft and Bristol-Myers Squibb have proven this drives real, tangible innovation. But you have to treat it as an ongoing practice, not just some one-hour workshop you check off a list. You need to give employees the autonomy to craft their jobs, meaning they have the actual freedom to experiment and redesign their tasks, value honest feedback, and crucially, acknowledge your own fixed mindset triggers. Come on, we all have moments where a failure makes us feel super defensive. Recognize that trigger and actively push through it. Which brings us to a final thought I want to leave you with today. Think about the absolute biggest challenge you are facing right now, whether that's at work, at school, or in your personal life. Are you treating that struggle as a massive roadblock that proves you just aren't good enough? Or are you treating it as a literal biological opportunity to build your brain? Remember, your abilities are not carved in stone. Embrace the effort, analyze the mistakes, and watch your capacity grow. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.